Okay, in this last section, I'm going to have a quick look at some of the works, just a few of the works of the photographic artist, Canadian Jeff Wall. Um, and I would like to introduce a quote from Wall about photography that I think links back to what I was talking about with Susan Sontag and Hidden. And so this is about what makes up a picture, how to go about finding pictures and making pictures. He doesn't think it's necessary to have ideas. He doesn't see photography as conceptual. He sees that it can be a tool for the conceptual, but photography itself isn't conceptual. So that you don't need ideas to make photographs, you just need to find subjects, something to photograph, to go out there and photograph. The hidden revealed in Jeff Wall's photographs seem to be the products of chance. That all of his photographs are taken from the viewpoint of the observer. And it's of the observer who stumbled naively on something unforeseen. Yet all of his pictures are constructs, they're carefully staged scenes, usually created in urban environments. And Wall looks to modern life for inspiration. He stages tableaus of everyday life, and that's his method for depicting arenas of social interactions and allude to socio-political problems. What interests him more than anything is the unobtrusive, the simple item you might see anywhere. And that links back to Sontag's Hidden. It's like hidden in plain sight. Here he has developed a sharp eye for detail of small, momentary gestures, facial expressions, and movements that seem familiar to the viewer and can shed light on an episode, an experience, or a phenomenon in particular ways. The relationship of individuals to society and culture, the isolation of individuals, social marginalizations, economic legitimacy, globalization, immigration, alienation, loneliness, exclusion, poverty, unemployment, hopelessness, racism. All of these are the subjects of his pictures. So they're the problems of society of today and modern urban life. The setting of the action in most of his photographs seems to reproduce the mental state of the persons depicted and to emphasize interpersonal relationships. There's communicative structures, or there's the potential for conflict. The setting also bears witnesses to people's involvement with their surroundings, whether they're in an interior or in this place, an industrial urban landscape. Wall's landscapes show an enigmatic self-containedness and motionless. If you look into the landscape here and ignore the scene of the fluttering papers, what the landscape is basically calm. It's motionless. It's not exactly idyllic, but it's modern idyllic. It's industrial urban idyllic rather than the previous conceptions of nature, which were based around the Arcadian idyllic. There's an almost spooky stillness that hangs over his industrial settings, but it's deceptive. Behind the contemplative calm lies exploitation and destruction. You see that in the fields that are here, the barren fields, the dry path that they're walking on, the leafless trees that compare strongly to the telegraph poles and the electrical poles on the other side. They seem to be almost the same thing. And this photograph, which is called A Sudden Gust of Wind After Hokusai and was made in 1993, apologies for not putting the title up, has been subject to digital post-production. And you can see 5 people in a wide, flat, rural landscape. The picture seems to capture a moment when the figures, the people, are surprised by a sudden gust of wind. It's a photographic rendering of the woodcut Strong Wind in Yejiri, I think, by the Japanese artist Hokusai Katsushika, who this is somewhere in the early 18th century. And Hokusai's composition here, the Hokusai drawing showed travellers caught in a storm on their way to Yejiri. But Wall sticks fairly close to the structure of that earlier picture and retains many of the details. However, the pictures show the eternally dynamic interaction of complementary forces that have an effect on mankind. Both pictures reveal an almost analytical handling of nature and natural forces. But whereas Hokusai's woodcut employs the harmony of curves, Jeff Wall presents us with a flat, partitioned landscape. In Hokusai's view, the figures yield to the violence of nature, yet they form a close unity with the landscape, rather than the people in this photograph who seem quite separated from their landscape. So Wall displays an awareness of the contrast more clearly, that really there is no harmony between people and nature. It doesn't exist in the modern world. Wall has also talked about photography. I mean, it's interesting, Wall never studied photography. He didn't actually study art. I think his degree is afterwards. He's got a Master of Fine Arts, but he never was an undergraduate in arts, which is an experience I can relate to. But he talks about the experience of photography as associative, simultaneous. In this respect, it resembles basic modern concepts of poetic employment of language. And he looked, in the interview, he's talked about Roland Barthes developed his concept of photography in opposition of Studium and Punctum. So the Barthes uses an oppositional structure of language, Studium and Punctum being opposed to each other. And in doing that, he's formalising the aspects of the poetry of photography. And this is an image, Milk, from 1984. And just to look at these aspects that are in opposition, and the milk really is the thing in opposition in this photograph. Have a look at the rest of the photograph to begin with. The person is sitting in front of a very simple structure. So the wall, the common urban brick wall, the character then jumps out of it, and the action is so tightly held that milk is so tightly, the explosion of the milk that seems to come out of the container. It takes a shape. It's not, and the shape isn't a describable or characterizable. It doesn't have any character to that shape. You can't say, oh, that looks like anything other than milk. And this is that sense of opposition, that it's held in stasis. That has this stopped this milk? I mean, in the picture, the milk will never fall. It will never drop out of this held position. It will continually be looking like this type of plastic eruption from the milk container. But at the same time, it's describing a shifting and a metamorphosis. So it's only because it's in stasis that it is able to describe the evolution of the shape of the milk from carton to explosion to eventual fall on the ground. And that these are these continual, the oppositional element of photography that is quite interesting. Other oppositions in this that are in this carefully structured photograph. So this isn't Jeff Wall walking by, and we all know this, but he's not walking by seeing this happening and taking a photograph of it. This is a very carefully constructed. This is the subject. This isn't about the idea. This is about him thinking, this is a good thing for a photograph. Now the wall is sitting there and it's opaque and you can't see through it, but to the left or our left, you can see the glass, which is visible through, but it doesn't go anywhere. There's a stairway that leads to nowhere. So we're looking at this continual blockage that the picture represents. We don't see through the picture. This isn't photography as transparent. This is a photography that stops you at a point. You don't look through this image, you look to this image. He's also made them as light boxes. So all of his images are presented as light boxes. And in some way, this is oppositional to the traditional photographic print that had taken over the idea of photography and art for so long, the handmade black and white photographic print that offered a reflected light, whereas Wall uses light boxes that offer a projected light and throw out these opaque surfaces to the viewer who walks by them. So that when you stand in front of a wall work, it actually covers you completely. The light emanates out of the work in this reversal of the process of the way a photograph is made, where the light is captured and kept. This is the light coming back to you in the production of Wall's work. So he's noted that the experience of a photograph, the experience of the immediate and simultaneous. So any occurrence recorded photographically sees the process of its developments. It's held. We're held there. This patterning is the means by which photography resembles earlier forms of pictorial art, in which illusion or occurrence of event was constructed by means of composition. So he's going out to find. He's not going out to find subjects. Sorry, he's not going out to find his subjects. He's not going out to find his pictures. He has his pictures already set. He's going out to make his pictures. He's using photography in the way that other artists have used other mediums to construct a pictorial field and tell a story. And from there, the ideas develop. Patterning, illusion, resembles, constructed. Those are the strongest words within this that come out from this quote. So works that appear to be viewed, that you do have the sense of the viewer, that the viewpoint is always from the viewer in Wall's photographs, that you're looking onto something. Again, you can see how this is a very closed environment, and nature sets up the closure in this. The trees and the dirt and even the relationships between the subjects seem to be quite closed. Yeah. The use of colour, the use of highlighting colour, all these things are very particular. They're done in the same way a painter would make a work. This is a work from 2009, and it's an example of what Jeff Wall calls near documentary, a near documentary approach to photography. The work portrays an event that could have taken place, yet the photograph is staged and carefully constructed. Some details are a matter of chance, while others are arranged by the artist. This work offers a provocative theme, the inspection of a home by officials in bulletproof vests, while proposing a twist. The work alludes to the increasing ability of governments to invade civilian privacy through technological means, legal or not. On the right behind the investigator is a telescope, a reminder of the mechanisation of seeing that enables remote access. Also, Wall points the viewer into a position of voyeurism. Like the officers in the apartment, the viewer interprets the clues in the photograph, working to make sense of the absent inhabitants and what might have occurred to result in the search. So we type of go beyond the photograph, but the photograph is sitting there acting as this type of evidence. That we look at the photograph forensically, the cut-offs of the things, the arm and the body and the shoe that are cut off, that green corner, the way that the chair, the rolling chair, which seems like an odd thing to be sitting on that carpet at that table with the cap and the shoes, all these things are cut off. They're just, they're separating from a reality that makes us want to extend past the field that we're looking at, which is forever closed. The door behind the doorway is closed. The steps down only end in a wall. The door that the third disembodied investigator is moving through goes seemingly nowhere. And even the look out of the view, the door is closed in the look out of the view. Everything is completely considered. And that strange little drawing that sits there, all these things that could be chance, that could have been there, but they start to lead us to make interpretations because we are investigating this forensically, because that possibility is there before us to do, because it is a photograph. If it was real, would we have the ability to forensically examine in the same way that the investigators are doing? Maybe and probably not. But Wall also answers some of the criticisms of his own work as well, whilst he's doing the same well, it's basically existing in the same premise. Like, there's always been this thought within Wall's work that it is continually closed and we never get to look through and see things out. So he did this particular work, apartment in 2004, 2005, where you did have a view out of the looking through and looking out. He wanted to do this look through and look out in response to the idea that most of his environments are closed. And he realised, okay, so my environments are closed and I want to do this differently and have this different view. So he thought of first doing it at home, but he's only got a view of the sea from his home, and he thought, oh, okay, it doesn't make any sense because the view is of limited pictorial interest. So he found an apartment that could work, and he rented the apartment for a year, and he gave the woman in the apartment a budget to fill it with furniture, and basically lived there for a year and video monitored her, and so that he could get a sense of her interaction with that apartment and build up chance and within that environment, so that he could eventually make this picture. So this picture, when it says 2004 to 2005, is a year in the making, but appears to be a fraction of a second. But he says that he rejects the idea that he does stage photography. So for him, every type of behaviour is equally real. The woman on the left is performing it. I don't think it has any effect on what she looks like. Yes, she's more directed in what she's doing, in that it was planned. I just wanted her to be walking away from her ironing, going somewhere, and it didn't matter where. So there is still a chance for chance in Wall's photography. It's and that offers another part of the forensic viewing of the images. We actually look for the chance in Wall's photography. We look to what is set up, and then we look to see where these small moments occur that aren't possible, don't have the possibility of direction, but just the possibility of chance. There's so many things you can look at in this image, and think all the way back to the image that I showed you of Atget looking around and seeing all those things in the image. There was also something else in that Atget image. If you ever want to go back to it, there's either a pair of stockings or a pair of shoes hanging above the shoes, stockings or socks hanging above the shoes in that window as well. It's type of fascinating. But one of the things I would really like to finish on is a tip from Jeff Wells that I read in an interview in The Guardian. Try not to resist admiring the best artists. So often when we think of opposition, we think of we're continually opposing the work of other artists, but really you can't resist admiring them. Thank you.